My name is Ryan Sprague. When I was 12 years old, my father and I stared up into the night skies, and we saw something extraordinary staring back. And whatever it was sent me on a search to find answers to the UFO phenomenon and beyond. And that search continues somewhere in the skies. Coming to you from SpectreVision Radio, the Somewhere in the Skies podcast features conversations, interviews, and roundtable discussions with scientists, scholars, historians, pop culture figures, and prominent UFO researchers. We also hear directly from you, the listeners, about your personal UFO sightings and encounters. Lastly, we bring you fascinating and engaging case histories. Each week is something different and truly unique. Somewhere in the Skies doesn't seek to just entertain. We seek the truth. We bring new questions and theories to the table. We bring new voices to the discussion. And we attempt to possibly find some answers to those mysteries that lay somewhere in the skies. New episodes are every Monday through SpectreVision Radio on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
Today we're gonna conquer your EV phobia in the all-electric Toyota BZ.
I can do this. I'm doing it!
One drive can change your mind in the all-electric BZ. Toyota, let's go places.
SpectreVision Radio.
Telemetry in launch condition.
Well, some other observers.
It's late night.
It's late night on the astral plane, where it's never too late. With your host, Ryan Singer.
It's more fun to believe.
Welcome to another voyage of Late Night on Tap. That is Late Night on the Astral Plane. I'm your buddy, I'm your host, Ryan Singer. I hope we're doing good this morning, this afternoon, this evening, or maybe late at night. We're night owls over here. It's never too late out here. I mean, this actually might be best, listen to late. We've got some things to get into on this particular voyage. I've got to read to you a Reddit post passed along to me from my buddy Daniel Noah, and this one, I'm going to let you decide whether or not you believe this is legit information or if this is just science fiction writing a la Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I'm going to let you decide. I will give you some thoughts on it, of course, but I think you should, be your own judge and jury on this particular alleged whistleblower disclosure via Reddit. And I will say this, it rings familiar to me of other alleged whistleblower type things with some of the language. To me, it is hearkening back to some of these other posts. I'm going to do my damnedest to try to show you what I mean by that, of course. But we'll see if I'll even be able to find it. Now, there's, what do I need to get into here? I want to tell you about a Gateway Voyage meditation that happened last night because it was unlike any other meditation, Voyager meditation that I've had up until now. Now, there is no video on this one. I mean, there is video. You will see things. I'm actually going to try to show some of the screenshots of this of this Reddit post in the subreddit UFOs for you. Now, it's only a few days old, and it's already making its rounds, as you can imagine. Now, there's a lot going on. There's Age of Disclosure, which is like the #1 film on Amazon like Prime as far as rentals go. You've got normies, you've got civilians jumping in, being like, "Oh my God, do you know about this UFO thing?" And you're one of these people who's like, "You mean the thing I've been into for the last 25 years? Yes, I know. For the last 40 years, yes, I know about it." But are they the same cast of scare you into military threat kind of characters? Is it the same cast and crew? Now, there is one person that we do have maybe a slight, I'm really stretching the bounds of imagination and believability here, connection to, that is a whistleblower. We, as you know, are not the cloak and dagger type of, podcast show out there. We're not out there, collecting whistleblowers and things like that. But I will tell you this. That doesn't mean that I haven't been involved in certain investigations that we believe we're stumbling upon some pretty profound information and insights into human consciousness and, the potential future of humanity and in the course of our meat suits maybe being left behind so we can just have our non-physical bodies. That's not here nor there at this point, but there is some interesting things over at the Patreon page. I think I kind of already alluded to some of that, maybe in a video style update. Just a reminder, $3 a month, no commercials ever on this program. So no video because I'm house sitting, I'm dog sitting first and foremost, house sitting secondly. The world's greatest dog? ? The answer is most likely yes. This dog named Darwin is an absolute delight. I was going to say an afternoon delight, but then I learned what that song meant about 9 months ago. I had no idea it was a song about like an adulterous affair or something. But Darwin is the world's greatest dog, probably. There is competition with Darwin from another dog that I dog sit when other friends go out of town, Birdie. And I'm not going to say the fact that there was a glass jar of eggnog left in the fridge for me unopened as a gift is influencing my decision right now. But it is officially December by the time you're listening to this. I think it'll be December. So my watch is transcribing everything I'm saying right now. That is so weird. But anyway, but there was some of the best eggnog I've ever had in my life in the fridge waiting for me, not to mention a freezer full of Reese's peanut butter cups. I mean, am I a guy who likes, you know me. I'm a guy who, like, is there a Mountain Dew in your fridge? I'll drink it. Code Red me. Baja Blast me. I'll get blasted. I'll go Code Red on it. I love sugar trash water. That's where I come from. That is who I am, and that's where I come from. Southern Ohio, we love sugar, white trash, sugar trash water, sugar, white trash, sugar water, whatever, white trash, sugar, whatever you want to call it. Now, I tell this story. Sometimes people don't. And by the way, I'm not trying to be disparaging. I embrace where I come from and who I am. And I got to tell you, my godfather was buried in his Cleveland Browns football jersey. You know, that was what he went into the casket with. Yeah, God, I loved him. He was my godfather. Love that son of a bitch. Miss him. He was the first family member that ever saw me do stand-up comedy because he got it. You know what I mean? I didn't have to worry about him being offended. You know, I knew he'd get it. So anyway, I'm off track here. Let me read you this. This is called, the title of this post, it's on Reddit, subreddit, UFOs subreddit. I'll link it, obviously, of course, so you can go back and read it. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing or not, but I mean, it might be worth it. And hat tip to Daniel Noah for forwarding this to me. And like I said, I don't know what to think about this. I really don't know what to think. And you'll understand why here in a minute. It's entitled, "You Wanted Disclosure? I am a whistleblower, recently, quote unquote, retired from the inside, and you're only getting part of the truth. From an unverified whistleblower, Reddit has them as an unverified whistleblower. So let's see here. Username Rhea-15510. Hi. So I heard y'all want disclosure. All right. Hope you have time for this because there's a lot. Grab a coffee or maybe get comfy with a pillow somewhere. I've been watching the news and hearing a lot of things I know to be true shockingly being talked about openly by some higher-ups in a documentary, so I figured what the hell. You can call me Ray, or Rhea. It's R-H-E-A. We'll say Rhea. Not my real name, obviously, but it will do. A little about me. I spent about 8 years in the military to pay for college, and then another decade plus in a part of the U.S. intelligence component that does not officially exist. On paper, I worked for a boring-sounding office in a department most people have never heard of. In reality, it was a compartment, inside a compartment where the odd stuff of a certain nature got routed. My actual specialty is electro-optics, lasers, sensors, EO imaging systems, the math and hardware behind how we detect things at a distance. And if you hear that clicking right now, that's the beautiful Darwin walking on some hardwood floor. So apologies if that was distracting. We detect things at a distance, and in some cases put energy on them. This is what I trained in, what I did most of my serious work on once I was off the deployment treadmill. So when I say I know something about directed energy weapons and weird sensor returns, that's not, quote, I heard this from a friend of a friend, end quote. That was my day job. Most of my career was boring in the way dangerous jobs are boring. Long days in windowless rooms, Iraq and Afghanistan in the early years, doing the usual mix of SIGINT and HUMINT support, SIGINT and HUMINT. I'm guessing that means human intelligence, the last one. And I don't know what SIGINT means, something else intelligence, support. I'm not a military person. Phone records, pattern of life workups, building target packets on people who'd never know my name but might notice a drone overhead later. Oh, wow, so you were doing like illegal spying on people, potentially. After I got out of uniform, I slid over to contractor work, then got pulled into the government side, the permanent government side. For a long time, my world was very normal. Counterterrorism, sanctions evasion, shady cargo going through weird ports, stuff like that. After that, foreign missile tests and what you have probably seen described publicly as space domain awareness. Basically, watching dots move around the sky and trying to decide whose dots they were and what they were doing. The weird part started when I was detailed to a small interagency working group looking at what was called, quote, anomalous aerospace and undersea systems, end quote. Translation, things detected and showing up on sensors that did not match any known platform, did not behave like clutter, and did not go away when you changed radar modes or swapped optical systems. I was there because I understood both sides of the equation, the physics of the sensors and the intelligence context. You get taught very quickly to treat anything unexplained as a glitch, a calibration issue, operator error, software artifacts, anything that keeps your world tidy. You get used to hearing weird glitch as a catch-all, except after a while you notice some of those glitches kept showing up across different systems, different countries, decades apart. Same behaviors, same basic locations, same signature that never quite fits. At some point, you either admit there is a real pattern or you drive yourself crazy trying not to see it. If you are useful and you start asking the wrong questions for long enough, someone eventually pulls you aside, takes you to a skiff. That's like a secure communications thing where there's no signal can get in, right, or whatever. So they take you to a skiff, takes your phone, has you sign your life away again, and shows you the next layer of the onion. This onion goes so deep, I doubt that even after years of briefings, I've been exposed to anything below a few layers. Even still, most of this is purposely kept off NIPR and JWICS and is done in person. Intercommunication systems or something? I have no idea what all these government types, these military types, and these spooks, they love their damn acronyms. I mean, I'm drinking a CZ right now. I love my acronyms too, shit. Damn it. The things that we make fun of other people for oftentimes are the things we do ourselves. Okay, back to it. That is where I learned about, so inside this skiff, right? Our person got pulled inside a skiff. That's where we are. That is where I learned about most of what you're interested in here and what seems to be bubbling to the surface in the news lately. That's when I learned about what we call the Council. Yes, aliens. And I suspect you're not likely to see a lot of what I know mentioned even by some who know it, who have begun speaking out for reasons I'll get into later. I've never met them face to face. Everything I know about them is from briefings, documents, and one secure video session that I honestly wish I had skipped. But it lines up with too many independent data points to just shrug off as somebody's pet theory. The basic story is this. Earth was noticed roughly 2 billion years ago, long before anything walked around on land. Not because we're special, but because we tripped a sensor, or rather life tripped their sensors. You see, the Council is not a single species. It is a collective of several advanced interstellar, maybe even interdimensional civilizations that run long-term surveys of stars and planets the way we run spy satellites. Huge distributed arrays of instruments working together, watching thousands of star systems at once for millions of years at a time. Their gear probably makes the James Webb Telescope look like a kid's backyard telescope. About 2 billion years ago, those instruments picked up biosignatures here, chemical fingerprints in the atmosphere that meant something was alive here. Atmospheric composition like free oxygen and methane, spectral fingerprints, chemical disequilibria that scream, quote, "There's metabolism happening down there," end quote. You know, the basics. At that point, Earth went into a database as, quote, "interesting, revisit later," end quote. Standard procedure for them when a world looks promising is pretty boring from their point of view. They send automated probes. Not big crude ships like you see in sci-fi movies, just small, tough, very smart machines. Those probes come in, mostly target the oceans, and set up self-replicating facilities on the sea floor. Those facilities use local materials to build more facilities, more probes, craft that can operate underwater, in the air, in near space, and eventually avatars that can interact with whatever life evolves. These biological, or rather biomechanical avatars, I hope that was my cord, that wasn't me farting. These and eventually avatars that can interact with whatever life evolves. These biological, or rather biomechanical avatars are what some people who claim to have been abducted have likely experienced. Though they do have what we call ASI, these beings are not gods. ASI, Advanced Spatial Intelligence, I have no idea. These beings are not gods. They are technology and they aren't perfect. They make mistakes, glitch out, etc. The reason they base all of that underwater, for a simple reason. The bottom of an ocean does not care about ice ages, political empires, climate swings, or wars. Temperatures and pressures change slowly over long periods of time. It is a fairly stable environment, and for much of human history has been mostly inaccessible. Speaking of time, we Earth humans tend to think in terms of nothing longer than the current human lifespan. And when pondering non-human intelligence, we like to think in terms of deep space, distance, and light years, but we seldom consider the lifespan and concept of time for a post-biological species could be quite different than ours. Only our most astute thinkers in the realms of geology, paleontology, and cosmology think in terms of millions or billions of years, geologic epochs, cosmological history, epochs, probably epochs, Ryan. That is child's play for the Council, which has a different concept of time, more concerned with deep time, millions of years at a stretch. As such, their infrastructure is designed for that. Oops. Sorry, I just had to increase the size of my screen because I'm an old son of a bitch. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, continuing on. Yes. So yes, a lot of the TMOs, transmedium objects, and impossible accelerations you have heard about are just their hardware doing its job. Maintenance, observation, sampling. Nothing heroic. The warp bubble / AI Cuvier effect was probably mastered by them before our solar system even existed. It's old tech for them, kind of like the wheel is for us. Also, no, we are not the center of anyone's universe. There are about 1 billion planets in our galaxy that are more or less like Earth. Some just have microbes. Some have more complex life. A smaller subset of those have or once had civilizations. We are just one more entry, a fairly recent one in cosmological terms, and a very large survey. Once early humans started doing interesting things, we moved from planet with life to planet with potential. They have watched this same story unfold in slightly different ways around 1,000 times from what I understand. Chemistry leads to biology. Biology creates technology. Tool use, language, agriculture, cities, industry, energy, space travel. Somewhere in there, you always hit the same fork. Either the species figures out how not to blow itself to pieces with the energy densities it increasingly has access to, such as nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, antimatter, and more exotic matter/energy, or it wipes itself out. Our situation worried them. We are a little paradox. Extremely good at cooperation and also extremely good at organized violence. Our aggression stood out. Cooperation plus violence isn't unique, but we're very, very good at both. And once you get to things like nuclear power, that combo tends to end very badly. They'd seen plenty of variations of that play out over at least a few billion years. About 10,000 years ago, our trajectory towards that became clear, and there was a major argument inside the council about what, if anything, to do with us. One side said the odds favored self-destruction once we discovered and weaponized atomic-level technologies. The other side argued we were worth saving, or at least worth understanding better. The compromise was an experiment, one which has ramifications as to why all of this has been hidden for so long. Let's take a quick break, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to read the second half of this, or whatever's left of this. Just a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month gets you no commercials anytime. Plus other goodies and other things over there. Now, I got to tell you, as a reminder, this is from a subreddit in the UFO subreddit. Daniel Noah passed this along to me. I thought it was worth sharing, and even more so than just kind of posting a link to. I wanted you to hear the story. I wanted you to hear the story that I read last night alone in an undisclosed location and started wondering what the hell is going on. And we're going to be right back, and I'm going to finish that story for you as long as I don't lose my place here. So yeah, just a reminder, we're going to be right back with all that good stuff.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, Sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
And we are back. I think you're back. You're probably back. This is a pretty compelling story so far, right? Even if it's not true. Okay, so I'll stop trying to bang the table and make other noises with cords around here so we can get back to it. So where we left off was 10,000 years ago, our trajectory towards became interesting, right? In two different sides of the council were trying to argue whether we were worth saving or not, okay? So the last sentence of that was one which has ramifications as to why all of this has been hidden for so long. Roughly 65,000 humans were removed from Earth and relocated to what is basically a preserve on a planet around the star you know as 82 Eridani. Internally, we called those people Arids. That star is in our catalogs if you feel like looking it up, but the details of the target planet are not public for obvious reasons. The Arids, E-R-I-D-S, were started in a kind of controlled paradise. Their world has large dispenser systems that can produce whatever basic material needs they have. Food, clothing, tools, building materials, entire structures for habitation. Think Star Trek replicators scaled up and wired into the environment. In that setup, nobody starves. Nobody is homeless in the way we understand it. Nobody spends their life chasing money just to meet needs. This was just the Arids' natural reality. The point from the council's view was to remove material scarcity from the equation and see what humans do and achieve when they are not spending most of their energy bashing each other over the head over resources. Meanwhile, the rest of us stayed here on the control planet, dealing with scarcity, ownership, money, hoarding, and the rise of socio-political systems based on scarcity, all of the things that define Earth civilization. The result, according to what we were briefed, is that the Arids are now around 5,000 years ahead of us technologically, averaged out. Same species, same basic biology, same starting point, completely different trajectory because of conditions, nature versus nurture on a cosmic scale. For most of their history, the Arids, I'm guessing they meant to write, thought they were native to that world. They only found out the truth roughly a century ago in our time. They learned that they were uplifted, that their ancestors were taken from Earth, and that they have cousins here. Excuse me. Once they knew that, some of them started coming back to visit the original branch. This is where their history intersects with some of the UFO stories you know. The quote-unquote aliens that look almost exactly human are just that, human. They are not hybrids, not clones, not secretly angels or demons. They are Arids, born around another star, showing up here after being given a 10,000-year head start. They have in some cases met with leaders of certain countries and at least 2 UN Secretary Generals, both deceased. Do you think one of them would be Nelson Mandela? I'm guessing probably. Now we get to why this has been buried for 80-some years. You have to think like a senior U.S. official in the 1940s and 1950s. World War II has just ended. The Cold War is starting. Everything is viewed through capitalism versus communism. Then someone puts a briefing in front of you that says, in essence, there is a group of humans living on another world who have no money, no private ownership in the way we structure it, automatic systems that meet their basic needs, and in that environment they advance thousands of years faster than we have. The men who built what we now call the legacy program in the U.S. that sounded less like, quote, interesting anthropological data and more like a walking, talking advertisement for space communism. It looked like proof that communism works better than the system they were trying to defend. That and the ramifications of what could happen if that ever got out terrified them more than the existence of aliens did. though to be fair, they plenty had their worldview rocked by the latter too. So, the core of the cover-up has never been, quote, aliens, or even their technologies. It has been the systemic implications, the idea that scarcity and ownership are not hard-coded into reality, that they are one possible way to run a society and maybe not the optimal one. This was seen as an existential political threat in the 1940s and 1950s, and some of the people who grew up in that mindset are still steering parts of the program today. Now add in the famous crash retrieval incidents. Roswell, 1947, Kecksburg, 1965, a handful of other retrievals around the U.S. and around the world. What we were told is that most of those were not accidents. They were tests and gifts. The council, with arid input, allowed certain craft and systems to fall into human hands in a controlled way. Enough intact technology that a very motivated and capable society could learn from it. Not enough that it would instantly rewrite everything. In fact, the Kecksburg landing, it wasn't called a crash internally, was a direct result of a meeting and gift agreement made at Holloman Air Force Base the year prior. The idea was to see who did what with it, who could figure it out, who kept it secret, who tried to share, who tried to weaponize it, who panicked. Based on those results, the plan was to pick one primary human partner to act as the main interface for full council contact and to begin a managed process of reunifying Earth humans with the Arids and introducing us to the wider community. You can argue that it is a good way to do it. You can argue whether that is a good way to do it. I am just telling you that is the framework I saw laid out. Okay, interesting. In the 1980s to 1990s, during a brief period when the Cold War ended, there was a push to finally disclose much of this. This was initially proposed at a meeting between then U.S. President Ronald Reagan and then Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev at a summit in Reykjavik, Iceland, in 1986. Also discussed was getting rid of nuclear weapons, as had been urged by the Council. In the end, it was decided to wait. There were two more U.S. pushes for disclosure between then and the 2017 New York Times article. One during the Clinton administration and another during the transition between the Obama and first Trump presidency. Now, for the part that put a clock on all of this stuff, you've been hearing about 2027, etc. About 3 years ago, a species that is hostile to the Council found out about the Earth Project. They are not part of the collective. They resent the way the Council handles in younger civilizations as they themselves felt victimized by the Council. They also resent the credit the Council gets for, quote, successful cases. I have heard them described as the jealous neighbors who would rather break your toys than watch you win. Yes, we sometimes joke about this stuff because, again, it's the only way to stay sane with this everyday knowledge and integrate it into your civilian life for Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas shopping, taking the kids to soccer practice, etc. Just as an aside, ever consider how two of the biggest holidays of the year involve gluttony, Thanksgiving, and overconsumption, Black Friday? When you have the knowledge many have within the program, stuff that is taken for granted seems really weird and a symptom of the now. Forced scarcity of our current system. Anyway, back to the aliens. That was an interesting aside for someone who's giving disclosure. Like, what are we talking about here in that specific thing? More on that later, potentially. Anyway, back to the aliens. The hostile group I mentioned decided to spoil the experiment. Here's the turn, everybody. That's me commentating, not what was written. Back to it. This species is ahead of us technologically, but far behind the Council. Though they also inhabit a relatively nearby star, cosmologically speaking, their travel is slower, less elegant, and has to take place in stages. Think of it as a space, quote, island hopping, which is why the lead time is so long. You probably want to know what they look like. Physically, based on the descriptions we saw, they are about 5 feet tall, segmented bodies, multiple limbs, basically ant-like in overall form. Nothing subtle or humanoid about them. They launched an expedition toward Earth with the stated goal of making a mess, cause chaos here, damage the experiment, and embarrass the council by showing they cannot protect their own projects due to internal disagreements. Basically, exploiting internal fissures, turning small cracks of understanding in the council into canyons, thus destroying it. That's their hope, at least. The transit time means for us they are expected to arrive in roughly 2 years from now, the 2027 holiday present no one asked for. That news triggered a major debate within the council. One group said, "The rules say non-interference. We watch and record what happens even if it is ugly, as we had done in the past." The other group said, "We effectively created this situation by tagging and monitoring this world. We have a moral obligation not just to watch a civilization we have been studying get smashed by someone else's grudge." If the council showed up by force, it would not be much of a fight. Their technology relative to the ant species is like a modern carrier group versus skilled archers on sailboats. The whole thing would be over quickly, and it would also completely blow the point of letting a young species find its own way. It would also be a tremendous blow to the human ego, which the council is well aware of. We're talking about ego here when it comes to annihilation of an entire planet of living species, and we're worried about hurting egos. That seems peculiar to me. Okay, back to it. So they arrived at a compromise. No direct council fleets defending Earth. No obvious intervention. Instead, they would quietly arm us. What they choose to give us are the things they roughly call scalar phase weapons. Our vocabulary is not great here. They are not just high-power lasers. They interact with fields we do not fully understand or really have names for yet. Shift phases dump huge amounts of energy from the vacuum into very specific volumes of space-time without a conventional bright beam or explosion. Compared to our current directed energy systems, they are an enormous leap. As someone who spent years working with lasers and optics systems, I can tell you they sit so far off our current tech tree that if you saw the damage assessments from a pulse without context, you would think they were misprints. But compared to council weapons, they are Nerf guns, training wheels per se. Anyway, that decision set off another big argument, both among them and among us. The obvious concern was simple. Once the external threat is gone, what stops us from turning these things on each other the same way we took nuclear power and turned it into thousands of warheads aimed at our own cities? On the U.S. side, there were people saying exactly that. And some members of the council argued that if we on Earth roll out scalar systems across arsenals, the first real test after the bugs are gone will likely be some crisis where two human governments start lighting each other up with technology we do not fully understand. The counter-argument, which won, was that species-level survival has to come first. If humanity gets wiped out by someone else's petty feud, then the entire debate is academic. Also, if humans fight this off themselves instead of watching the council show up and save the day, they will meet the wider community as people who actually did something, not as rescued primitives. Human ego intact, and kill switch, if you will, has been built into the tech to disable it after the conflict which the council sees us winning. If we then decide to use these weapons against each other, they'll simply be disabled until we humans have learned enough to disable the kill switch, which could be thousands of years from now, for all I know. So against a lot of internal resistance, the council has been quietly providing scalar phase systems to several blocks, not just the U.S. The list I saw included the United States, China, the European Union, through specific channels, Russia, and Brazil. Those systems are being integrated into space platforms, aircraft, and undersea assets. Testing is happening in remote places and high altitudes, often disguised as other things. Most of the people physically working on it think it is an advanced homegrown black program. Only a very small circle in each capital sees the full context. I got to see pieces of that picture shortly before I was pushed into retirement. which is a polite way of saying I stopped being convenient. That is as specific as I am willing to get. There is one more reason I am writing this now, after pondering it for a long time, and it is more personal than the 2-year clock. A friend of mine, someone I worked closely with inside the program, another EO specialist, had been talking quietly years ago about going to Congress. Not with everything. They were not suicidal. Just enough to force a real closed-door hearing in the Senate, get the true nature of certain SAPs acknowledged on paper, make it harder to bury the whole subject under jokes and career threats. Over a year ago, I got word that they died. The official explanation has been vague and unsatisfying. Quote, medical complications on a trip to a black site in the Indian Ocean. Those medical complications do not match what I know about their health. Then it became, quote, an accident at home, with no details anyone will put in writing. People who would normally be candid went very quiet very fast. Maybe it was just bad luck. People do die suddenly. But given the threats which are known about within certain IC sectors when one is associated with this subject, I don't know for sure. What I do know is that the last long conversation I had with them was about whether it was worth trying to talk to certain congressional staffers for a certain senator. After hearing recent news confirming publicly much of which I know to be true privately, I stopped telling myself I would wait and see how things played out. Life is short. So here we are. Some stranger on the internet telling you an unbelievable story you are free not to believe. With roughly 2 years on the clock and the current rate of leaks and, quote, whistleblowers and half disclosures, it is very unlikely they keep all of this under wraps until the first time something openly, not from here, appears in our sky or our orbit. At some point before that happens, at least one major government, maybe more, is going to go public in a controlled way. My guess would be China or the US, but it could be one of the others on that scalar weapon list. You will likely get a very carefully worded announcement about unidentified aerial phenomena, about contact with non-human intelligences, about new defensive technologies, and unprecedented international cooperation. It will be designed to manage panic and control the story. What you probably will not hear in the first round of briefings is the part about the Arids, the economic implications of their society's existence, the billion other habitable planets, the undersea infrastructure that has been here longer than we have had bones. You will not see anyone step up to a podium and say, oh, by the way, there is a branch of humanity that grew up without the idea of money and scarcity 10,000 years ago and advanced 5 millennia past us. That is why I am dumping this here, where people can ignore it, laugh at it, or save it and see how it ages. Like I said, do not have to believe me. I'm not here to sell a book, go on podcasts, be on TV, or do UFO lectures. Treat this as fiction if that makes you more comfortable. What I am really trying to do is get you to think past the kiddie pool questions. Are UFOs real? Are the NHI, non-human intelligences, good or evil? Is not the interesting part. The far more interesting questions are, what happens to this planet once everyone knows we are being watched, that we have cousins around another star, that some of the basic assumptions we build our societies around were just one option, not a fundamental law of nature. If in a year or two you start hearing officials talk about our cousins among the stars or civilizations far older than ours, and new non-kinetic systems and shared planetary defense, remember this post and see how well it fits. Look, the bugs are coming either way. The council is not going to save us directly. They already handed out the tools, and they are watching to see what we do with them. The part that is still up to us is what kind of world we build if we get through it. Will we all go back to work and beat each other over the head with really advanced sticks, or do we achieve a more enlightened potential? That is all I have. Rhea. So, did we get all that? Did we process this story? I didn't realize it was going to take so long to read. We're going to take our last break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to discuss some interesting tidbits that have shown up on this particular Reddit post from an alleged whistleblower named Rhea in the UFO subreddit.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
And I'm back. Okay, so here we go. What we have here is a fascinating story. Let's start this intellectual exercise by just assuming this is true. 2 years. It is time to run up all of your credit cards. That is the first takeaway that I get from this. I'm just kidding. I got about 27 pieces of plastic ready to just go buy all the baseball cards. Okay? No, I'm of course I'm kidding. If we assume this is true, we've got insects coming for us. We have 5 feet tall ant-like insects coming here to attack us because they don't like the people that took some of us as an experiment. To me, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if you are able to even do island hopping space travel, my guess is that it seems a little petty to me to want to just go attack an entire species that doesn't even know you exist just because you're being bastards. Is that a proper? You're being space bastards? Space bastards. That is the name of a band. That should be a shirt, dude. I'm gonna make a shirt called Space Bastards, and it's ant-like it's like upright walking ant type creatures with like laser guns. Space Bastards. And those guns are also guitars or keytars. Anyway, I'm saying it seems unreasonable. And this could be completely my naivete, I could be so naive in thinking that just because someone can advance technologically so far ahead of us that they would also emotionally and psychologically be ahead of us. I mean, we can get into space currently, and we've put robots on Mars, and we are still doing some of the craziest things to one another. We still have a president in the United States who references the way he talks about people. I mean, it's and you know, the hatred and the division sown out of fear, right? Out of scarcity. Oh, the white people are under attack. White people aren't on TV anymore. You hear this bullshit? You hear this? Reasonable people have been saying this for years. Somewhat reasonable people. You would think they were reasonable, and then they start saying things like that. And it's like, oh, do you think white people aren't on television anymore? That's really, really ignorant, first of all. And second of all, only white people were on TV for so long that now that it's not only white people, you think there aren't any white people. We're going to put you over at the kids' table, okay? And then we're going to try to read you some books that have been banned by other white people who are scared that their hegemony is over. Anyway, so I'm going off on a tirade here. Listen, this story could be a real whistleblower giving us real factual disclosure. And it's kind of scary, right? It is kind of scary to think that we're going to have an interplanetary war. And it's kind of that old line about Ronald Reagan. Wouldn't it be, if a... Well, let me see if I can get my Reagan back. It's been 25 years since I've tried to do Ronald Reagan. Well, if the ant people come and try to attack us, well, wouldn't that be something? We'll have to attack them ourselves. That will unite a people. His famous quote about an outside threat uniting it's a shame, but it would take an outside threat to, get people to unite here on Earth. Now, this whole military threat that I'm not a big fan of. Age of Disclosure is a new movie. Full disclosure, I haven't seen it. I'm not paying $20 to watch this movie. We'll see when it gets cheaper. A good friend of mine said that they got it and they fell asleep in the first 15 minutes. It seems to be like a lot of the usual cast and crew of whistleblowers, all former military, all with the military threat, the threat to our national security. Now there is a Navy admiral who is one of these whistleblowers who I've got it on good authority really, really wants disclosure out there, from what everybody has been saying. Anyway, and the fact that this guy is one of the most respected, and he's retired, he apparently just wants disclosure and is into it and thinks people deserve to know. And that's where we stand on this show, right? This Rhea says, those aren't the important questions. Are they good or are they evil, these aliens, blah, blah, blah. The questions are, what would the world look like? That's what we talk about here, I think, right? When we talk about everything paranormal in general. For years and years and years, we kind of consider under the framework of a way of thinking, it has always been what fundamental shift in the way that human beings live happens when we understand that physical death isn't real and ghosts are, and that we are not alone in the universe. Those are the two main thoroughfares in Paranormal City, in Paranormal Town. You've got Ghost Avenue and Alien Street. It should be Alien Avenue and Ghost Street, Ghost Boulevard, right? Those are and where they intersect is downtown Paranormal City, right? And those two things change everything. And the suburbs and the little neighborhoods, the little art districts that surround those two streets, those two main thoroughfares, that's where Bigfoot lives and Chupacabra and fairies and fae, right? And some of these other interdimensional parallel universes and doppelgangers, maybe tulpas. Those are the suburbs, the neighborhoods of Paranormal City. Now, those are the more important questions. I agree 100% with this alleged whistleblower, unverified whistleblower, Rhea. Now, where I start to have problems with this story is it sounds exactly like Star Trek Strange New Worlds. They even reference Star Trek in here, which I think is kind of a hat tip maybe. But Star Trek, the Federation, right? In case you haven't watched Star Trek or you're not watching Strange New Worlds, I'm about halfway through season 3. Just in case you're not a fan of that show and all the different variations, it's a beautiful universe they've created. The Federation of Planets, right? And the Enterprise is the flagship ship of the Federation, which is the council in this post, right? Now, they have a very specific, they call it the prime directive, that they cannot interfere with civilizations or species on different planets if they haven't developed warp technology yet. That is their prime directive. If they come across a species and they do a scan of the planet and there's no warp technology recognized or detected, they cannot interfere. They will not be seen by them. They won't interact with them. Only after they have warp technology do they feel like they are allowed to go and interact with them. Now, this is the council can't interact with humans here on Earth, right? And most of the episodes and most of these things with Star Trek are based on this prime directive. And this exact story plays out in many different nuanced ways in different episodes of this show throughout the years. A different alien species is going to attack a species that's quote unquote more primitive? Does the Federation, do they get involved? Do they intervene to save them? An asteroid is getting ready to hit the planet and wipe out a civilization that shows promise, right? A species on a planet that shows promise. Do they intervene with the asteroid, right? In a way that can't be detected. Maybe they're allowed to do it if they can't be detected, right? So it's like this exact same story. This isn't, basically what I'm saying, this isn't an original story. Now, there are, some people will tell you there's only, 7 stories in the world, and life is a story. So of course we are going to reflect something that could be an inevitable reality of our future. That's not to say that we couldn't, but I just wonder, with some of the language in this post, some of the self-deference and the, first it's that, what is that, the authoritative complex or whatever I can never remember the name of this damn thing. It's when, and it's exactly, and it's so important here in the world of the paranormal, because if someone comes from a position of perceived authority, whether they're a former cop or are a cop or someone in the military or a doctor or a PhD, someone who has quote unquote authority by our perceptions, their testimony and their ideas hold more water. They are more legitimate to us than, say, a farmer, a hillbilly, an unemployed guy, or a guy who works at a gas station and a UFO showed up in the parking lot, right? That person, now if a cop showed up and saw it, that'd be one thing. But the kid who works at the 7-Eleven, we're not going to believe him. He's probably on drugs. It's that authoritarian perspective that gives legitimacy or holds weight and holds water for us when we hear stories of when we're asked to believe the unbelievable, the authoritative, I should just Google it, but I can't. I've tried to Google it recently and it didn't come up. The point is, they lay out their credentials pretty thick at the beginning, right? And it could just be word salad, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. But they lay that out. Here's the authoritarian, confirmation that you need, that I have authority, that I come from a position of authority and therefore can be trusted more than someone who can't. Now, obviously, someone within the government and inside the government and special ops programs and top secret clearance and all that kind of stuff, there would be the exact ones who would have this information. But here's my question. The council, why would they choose the United States, China, Russia, when there are other countries who are far more advanced as far as what the project aligns with on considering the ARIDs? You can look at France, nuclear power for the entire country, free energy, socialism, free education and healthcare. Why would Canada, the Netherlands, Denmark, Switzerland, who will never take a side in a war, France, some of these European, I guess the European Union is involved, yes, but so I guess I have to backtrack some of that. But what I'm basically saying is the biggest perpetrators of international warfare and the military-industrial complex are the United States of America. Why would we be one of the people that's brought in on this? We clearly cannot be trusted with any of this stuff because we are the ones pushing capitalism the hardest and always have been. You understand? We're the greedy sons of bitches in this equation, right? We are the ant people. Look around. We're the people who would travel to another planet just to break your toy. That's what this country is right now in this moment, at least from a leadership perspective. I'm not talking about the citizens because we're not like that, but it's psychos who run the world, right? It's these psychopaths who are so hungry for power, and these oligarchs and these tech billionaires or just other billionaires. They are the psychos who ascend to positions of power. So why would the council interact with them? Do they have no choice? Maybe that's what you're saying. They have no choice. They have to talk to the people who are quote unquote in charge. And I guess that's a fair assessment. Now, here we are, wondering if the ant people are coming in 2 years. What does that make you think about your 401k or your Roth IRA. I think these are things that people put money into. I don't know about that. All of my money is in Dogecoin. Just kidding. Sorry. I hope you didn't have a lot of money in Doge or whatever, Dogecoin or whatever it is. No, so my cryptocurrency days are over. I used to have, I never had very much money in cryptocurrency, but I did have some in like Cardano, because it was the environmentally friendly answer to cryptocurrency. At least so I thought. But then that bottomed out. But luckily I didn't have very much money, so it didn't really matter. But anyway, what I'm saying is there have been other posts, other mysterious whistleblowers who have posted on the internet over the years. And Richard Doty is one of the most famous ones as a misinformation agent, right? Now, this is a perfect way to get people scared. You have ant-like aliens getting ready to attack Earth. That's a perfect scare tactic, right? We talk about the two sides of disclosure here. The imminent threat, military needs to make sure that we're not threatened. And then we have the ones who are saying that's what the military want. They want you to be scared and they want you to have scary stories so they can consolidate more power. It's the two sides of the disclosure coin. So, I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you this story is BS. Hey, Darwin. Darwin's over here trying to get some love. I've been talking too long and not to her. So sorry if you hear a weird snarl. I don't know if I've ever said the word snarl. So if you hear a snarl, that's sweet baby angel Darwin. So, yeah, I don't know the answer. But I do know that this reads like a story synopsis for an episode of Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, or any of the Star Trek series, for that matter. It sounds like maybe like the season arc, like it's season 4. This is the arc of season 4, right, of Strange New Worlds. So if I was forced to make a choice regarding Rhea, the unverified whistleblower, I would say that the story is fiction, and it doesn't matter if I'm wrong or right, because guess what? I'm not prepared to fight alien ants. You know what I mean? I own a pocket knife only because you never know when you need a little pocket knife when you're hiking for something. But I don't, I've fired guns before, at like a shooting range and then out at the farm, once. But I'm not a gun guy. I'm not a taekwondo. You know what I mean? I'm not fighting aliens. You know what I mean? That's not who I am. So in 2 years from now, I'm not going to be alien ant insectoid Rambo. Okay. So it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong about this. My inclination is to tell me that I'm wrong, thinking that this would be true. That was a very confusing way to say that I don't think this story is true. But you know what? It gets you thinking. And you got to be open to, the things. Listen, how many people have heard me ever tell the story of, witnessing someone shapeshift on multiple occasions, and just been like, I can't listen to anything this guy says. And that's their choice, right? So I don't know. Admittedly, I don't think this story is true. And also, I will admit that probably 20% of that conviction comes from, I hope it's not true. I don't want this to be true, right? That doesn't mean that it won't be. I don't want to have cognitive dissonance. And in 2 years, when the ships show up and giant ants start running around the streets, killing humans, I won't be like, oh, this is a hologram by, George Soros to try to take my guns. I'm not going to, I wonder what Alex Jones would think about this. Actually, I don't. I don't care about what Alex Jones thinks about anything. Except maybe I would care about what he thought about the lives of the parents of Sandy Hook students, how he ruined their lives. And that guy doesn't deserve to have have anything. Please, Darwin, I'm almost done over here, okay? I know you got to go outside probably. I got to let her out. We got to end this. I got to take care of baby girl over here. That's number one priority. I didn't get to tell you about my Monroe meditation. I'll do that later. 2026 is going to be the year of the shapeshifter. I mean it this time. We're going all in on that. So you'll know more as I know more in regards to that. But yeah, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself. You know, the holidays are amongst us. We're in full tilt holidays. I know there's been all kinds of crazy snow back in my old hometown. So hope everybody's staying warm and staying safe on the streets. It's only been like 73 degrees here in Southern California. It's been actually a little bit chilly. I had to put the heater on last night. I apologize to you if you hear that and you're just like, oh my God, I want to kill you. And you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, so I hope to see you at a show around the holidays. If not, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.
Now receiving frequency transmission.
A padlock, right? You and I look at a padlock that's on like a locker, and it's got the dial, and there's like 3 numbers, right? And the first number, you have to hit it, and the second number, you have to go around and pass it once and hit the second number. Then the third number is where the thing unlocks, right? We put so much like onus on that number, the numbers. But if you like scrape those numbers off and replace them with like emojis or with Arabic or dots or something, it's basically all doing the same thing. Maybe religion or all these stories, these spiritual stories, are all sort of like the different iterations of those symbols that I was just talking about. One is numbers, one is emojis, one is glyphs, one is dots, but it's all kind of operating completely the same underneath. And that's just basically giving people symbols or stories or guide rails or guideposts to sort of like get them there. The numbers. It's all doing the same shit underneath, unlocking the things. And those 3 things that you have to hit are one unlocks the gears, and that lock opens up. And what is that lock? I don't know. That's a different question. I'm not answering that one.
Transmission complete. Stay tuned to SpectreVision Radio. Stay.